I will say welcome to the Free Culture Sports Show. It's only been a week, well, slightly more than a week this time because it's Sunday, not Saturday. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
A personal question that is relevant to the show. Do you go to Sunday school?
No, not Sunday school.
Okay.
We occasionally make it to well, I should say more than occasionally make it to the preaching, but not ever Sunday school.
Okay. So, because for time zone purposes, if you had gone to Sunday school in a traditional, Southern Baptist time slot, you would not have been able to see any of the games today. Were you able to see any of the games today?
Yeah, we didn't make it to preaching this morning, so I was able to watch pretty much all of the Liverpool game.
Nice. And I debated with myself internally whether or not I was going to watch the last the last hole in the Premier League game, as it turned out, but the last Manchester United game of the season, and or to go play in my normal Sunday time slot. And I usually get pretty irritated at people that decide to watch things instead of play. And we have enough people that pick up, like it's not the beginning when it's cold and it's not the end when it's cold. And even in the middle when it's like super hot, people still come out. For whatever reason, the heat is like much more dangerous, but the cold turns people away much more. I don't really understand that, but whatever, it is what it is. I mean, the MLS has this thing too. It's like, oh, people won't come out and watch the games in January. It's like, well, they watch NFL games in January in like a lot of the same cities, and also like people aren't going to die. I mean, if you're out there for like a day in the cold, or if you're like old or a baby, sure, you can die in the cold, but you're not going to die running around in the cold because running around makes you hot. However, Houston in July, somebody may well end up dying in the MLS because of that.
Are you talking about a player or a fan?
Well, it could be either one. I mean, it hasn't happened in the U.S., but you hear about people dropping dead. I mean, it happens in basketball every once in a while.
Usually heart related things, but
right. But I mean, the heat is gonna exacerbate any of the the blood pressure and stuff.
True.
I don't know. It seems kind of silly, but especially after the experience that we had going to the Liverpool Tottenham game.
Yeah,
and,
that was
miserable.
Dreadful.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that at least in Rutherford County, I think the Hispanics get it right. They, being naturally probably a little bit lazier than the people you're playing with, they play at like 6 or 7 in the evening, which is cooler. Sun's starting to go down. More chance for a thunderstorm, but
What we did in Apple Hill was at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's not quite as hot in Baltimore as it is in North Carolina. Today in particular, it's not hot. But regardless, I did not see the game. That was the whole point. So we probably get back to talking about my video just died. It appears. Are you there, Evan?
Yeah, I'm there. Your audio's cutting in and out again.
All right, let me plug up. I guess I don't know what's going on with that. So we can cut this out too.
Okay. Hey, crowd. Probably cutting this part out, but thought I'd keep it entertaining for the 5 seconds that we're live here, just in case there was anybody who was watching live and needs some entertainment right now. Probably more entertainment right now than watching the Liverpool game, unless you're a Stoke fan, of course. I'm sure Stoke fans love that game. Probably the most goals Liverpool's given up in a long time, unfortunately. Defense was awful. Absolutely dreadful.
All right.
And we are done. It still says that I'm live, but Doug is frozen, so I don't know if it says that he's live. I don't know if I'm technically live. I can still leave the call. And Doug is back with us.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I said, I don't know, I guess you didn't hear this part, but I was like, let's see if this disconnects me when I get off the wireless onto the wired. So maybe it did momentarily. So anyway,
We had a nice conversation with anybody who might have been watching live, but
nice. All right, so we didn't see any of the. Oh, you watched the Liverpool game, so
yeah, I guess I saw. No, I didn't really. No, they didn't really show highlights from the other games. I saw scores as they were going on.
I did see that the United Hull game was 0-0,
Yeah.
which I don't necessarily assume that games are bad because they're 0-0, but
I don't either.
it may. I mean, you have to think that Hull was fighting for their lives, but and United had nothing to play for. I'll be sort of irritated if Van Gaal didn't play the kids, or at least some of them. But who knows? I didn't look that far into it. So, well, let's just run down very quickly, and we'll talk about each team, and then I'll mention the predictions. So Chelsea, we both predicted second, but they finished first. City, we both predicted they would win, but they finished second. Arsenal was third. You had this. I'm not going to pick them not to pick in the top four, as I have mentioned before, but you had them finishing fifth.
Because I had to put Liverpool in the top four because we agreed on the top three, so I had to pick Liverpool in the top four, which, you know, if I'd been picking with my head instead of my heart, I guess I would have picked Arsenal 4 and Liverpool 5, but it is what it is.
So United was not quite as good as we had anticipated. They did make that fourth Champions League spot, but we both had them third. Tottenham was better than we expected. You had them sixth. I had them seventh, and they finished fifth. Liverpool was sixth, and I had them fifth. You had them fourth. Southampton was seventh, and we really just did not believe that they could do it after everybody had left.
That's the one team we really missed the ball on.
So
Crystal Palace too here in a second when we start talking about them.
Yeah. So Swansea, they finished a little bit better. They finished 8th. You had them 11th. I had them 10th. Stoke, I was on the money at 9th. You had them finishing 8th. Crystal Palace, yeah, we both had them staying out of relegation, but fighting basically in those like outside of relegation spots. 17th for you, 16th for me, but they finished 10th. Of course, the thing that happened with Crystal Palace was I think we might have been right, except that Newcastle coach, Alan Pardew, he's now the Crystal Palace coach, and they've really done well since he went down there.
Yeah,
he played there, so he has connections there. Everton really dropped the ball. Whether or not that was Europa League or not. I had them 6th, you had them 7th, and ended up finishing 11th. We had West Ham right on the money at 12th.
Yep.
West Brom we had right on the money at 13th. And I had them 11th. Leicester ended up 14th, was right where I had them. You had them a little better at 10th. I seem to remember you were really impressed with Iran in the championship last year.
I thought that they would do better, and at the beginning of the year, they had some really good performances against top teams. They never, I think they like drew a couple times against maybe some of the top teams, but one of those I think at the time was Everton, which, you know, in hindsight now wasn't that good. I think they came back and beat Man U like 5-3 or something crazy.
Yeah, United was up like 3-1 or maybe even 3-0, and then I don't know what happened there. But
I thought they would do just a little bit better, but I mean, it is what it is. They finished 14th. It seemed like a couple or 3 or 4 weeks ago they were basically fighting for relegation.
Oh yeah.
Then they ended up 6 points ahead of Hull, so they found it late. If they had it early and they found it late, it was that mid-season form that wasn't very good for them.
Yeah. So usually 40 points is like the safe zone once you get to 40 points, and Leicester got that. But the teams that are 15th, 16th, and 17th that stayed up, and those are Newcastle, Sunderland, and Villa, they did not reach the 40-point mark. Newcastle had 39 points, Sunderland 38, and Aston Villa 38. Newcastle, Alan Pardew left, didn't do as well as we had expected. And I got to say, I don't blame Pardue at all because for whatever reason they hated him there. But it's not his fault. I think it's. I mean, they hate Mike Ashley too, but I guess they can't really sack Mike Ashley.
Yeah,
I mean, unless they want to pool their money together and buy the team. But
I thought this was a very interesting sign at the end of the Newcastle game because after all of the games were finished today on TV, on the like 10 different stations they were on,
literally 10 different stations.
Literally 10 different stations. All of them cut to the reaction of the Newcastle team and fans and the whole fans and team because those were the two spots that really mattered. We could, the Europa League spots were kind of up for grab, but nobody seemed to really care about that. It was all the relegation. The Newcastle fans, some of them held up a sign that said, basically, we don't care if our team wins as long as they try. And I'm like, is that true? Is that really true? You don't care if your team wins as long as they try? Or was it hinting at like the owner not giving money? Like, surely there was something a little bit deeper than just, oh, our team wasn't trying, but we support them for now that they're trying. I mean, I just that seems a little bit odd to me.
Well, obviously they want them to win, but I think that it had gotten into the situation because they were safe. They were like safe mid-table, not going into the Europa League, not getting relegated, and they just like stopped playing, and then they all of a sudden found themselves in the relegation fight. And the idea, it seemed to be, just listening to people on, the Guardian, Football Weekly, and on other shows, they all saw the pundits there made it sound like that they thought the Newcastle players weren't trying. Whether or not, maybe it was just they were gassed for whatever reason. Training sessions are too hard or something. Like maybe they were trying and they just really didn't have the energy. But you have to think probably that's not it. I mean, the Jurgen Klinsmann's 2-a-days and 3-a-days and 27-a-days or whatever he does are famous this side of the pond. But I would think that professional, athletes that weren't representing their country, I think they would revolt. And a lot of times you see like Felix Magath, who's famous for those sorts of, lots of endurance training and stuff in Germany. You'll see a manager like that come in and like whip a team into shape and like maybe keep them from getting relegated or something like that. But those managers never last long because players just get tired of it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what was going on with Cattle, but yeah, I think the whole like, would you rather be winning games in the championship or losing games in the Premier League sort of thing? I don't really. I guess I don't really. I mean, the thing from this side of the pond, if you're a fan of the U.S., you do not want your team to get relegated because then you can't watch your team anymore.
Yeah.
Even it was hard. I don't get the, any sort of Bundesliga action anymore, but I used to, and I did when St. Pauli was up in Bundesliga 1, and I got to see them occasionally. But now that they're in Bundesliga 2, even if I had Goal TV and Fox Soccer, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, but if I had those, I wouldn't. That league is not on TV here, so the people that can go to the stadium, I guess it's kind of like D1 or D2 in college athletics. I mean, can you be a good D2 team, or would you rather be D1? I mean, it seems like a lot of teams go for the D1 glory.
Yeah.
The fat paychecks,
get that chance at at least getting your name out there more. Yeah. At least in because there's all about recruiting and trying to get money for the school.
Right. It's not just about recruiting for the athletic teams, but actually like recruiting for the university.
Right. And so, I mean, as a club, that's a good question. As a club team, I mean. But I watched some of the Railhawks game that was on Watch ESPN this week, and I found that much more enjoyable for me to watch than an MLS game probably because I bought into the fact that it's from Carolina, not because of the skill of the players. So I think that the fans, as long as they can see it, I don't know if they care too much. I mean, of course they want to, the goal of any team in England should be to win like the FA Cup or to win the Premier League. Just keep getting better and better. And if you're going down the table or going down in leagues instead of up in leagues, you're doing the opposite of that.
Right.
Because
you mentioned the FA Cup. Are you in a better position to make an FA Cup run if you aren't fighting for Premier League survival?
I mean, probably.
I mean, think about like Reading this year and a couple of the other second and third division teams that really went far.
Wasn't QPR good in the FA Cup last year?
I couldn't say off the top of my head.
I can't remember. But Aston Villa this year, they were fighting for not being relegated, but they still put.
Well, in the end, they were, but
yeah, I felt like they were putting. They played a great performance against Liverpool in the semifinals, and then like the next week they were like, "It's a Premier League game again. Let's not try anymore." So I mean, it's just what do the fans want, and go from there. If the fans want you to, be in the Premier League, just not get relegated, continue to be there. But what are you cheering for then?
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is the fans want different things. Probably a lot of the, this is just an assumption, but a lot of people that remember the glory days of the FA Cup, they want, a nice FA Cup run. But people now, they may just want like the superstars. They may want to be in the Champions League. I mean, Newcastle has been in I guess it was probably the European Cup when Newcastle was last in it. But I mean, they've done that. They are a club of the size of which could be fighting for those Champions League spots, but they're not at this point.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, I remember Newcastle players being on the front of. I mean, Alan Shearer being on the front of like Eurosport magazine and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's in today's world of soccer. If you're not one of the gigantic clubs with the huge payrolls and the huge salary, the huge incomes, you don't have the chance to win the Champions League like you used to. So what is the point of a lot of these teams? I mean, yes, you want to do your best, but hooray, Swansea finished 8th. Are their fans really happy about that? No.
Well, the best team in Wales.
The
best team in Wales.
Yeah. So
I mean, Newcastle is the best team in the Northeast, I guess, because their main rival finished 16th and finished 15th.
Yeah.
Just 1 point better. So.
I mean, I guess that's what you got to live on. As those teams is do the best we can and beat our rivals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as long as they get bragging rights in the city over Sunderland, they finished a point ahead of them. Let's go, be happy with that.
So we already talked about Sunderland. I had them doing a little bit better. I seem to remember last year's was really big too. I don't know what it is about Sunderland, but I have high hopes for them that they dashed them. Maybe I should stop giving them so much credit. I remember last year I really was impressed with the names they brought in. This year, I mean, 13th is not like amazing, but I'm not sure why that I.
Well,
so high.
I was toying with saying they were going to get relegated this year. They to me over the past couple of seasons have been like the almost opposite of Arsenal. I won't say the opposite, but like Arsenal always finds a way to get in the top 4. It seems like Sunderland's been finding a way not to be relegated the past few years.
Oh, well, certainly last year.
Yeah, and so I mean this year I can't remember when they necessarily became safe, if it was last week. It was either last week or this week, but I can't remember what they had to do last week. Did they tie somebody last week?
They would have been safe last week because Hull has 35 points and they got a point today. So they would have had 34 points before today. Actually, I guess I don't know what happened to the Sunderland and Aston Villa games.
Well, Sunderland lost to Chelsea 3-1 today. And they tied – would they tie Arsenal last on the 20th? They tied Leicester on the 16th. That's what I think really made them safe. I think both teams got a tie, and it made both teams basically feel safe.
Wow.
At least Leicester did. I can't remember what Sunderland did, but then Sunderland went and got a point against Arsenal on the 20th midweek, and so maybe that got them to 38. So that would have been the point that saved them.
So you didn't mention the score of the Liverpool game, and I hadn't seen it until just now.
Yeah.
Did they have like 7 people sent off? Like, what happened?
Honestly, the defense was awful. Lovren didn't play. Sacco played instead of Lovren. Skirtle played, and Emre Can played in the back, which they've been using Lovren, Skirtle, and Can in the back. So I don't know why Sacco played over Lovren, and I don't know if that's what made the huge difference. But man, if that's what made all the difference, it was a huge difference. But there was just plays where the midfielders or defender who got beat just wasn't tracking back. They like gave up. And just
ultimately it didn't matter because Liverpool finished 6th, which is in a Europa League spot.
Well, isn't there a difference in between the 5th and the 6th? Like where you come into the European?
That may be. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, certainly between 3rd and 4th for the Champions League spot there is, but I don't know. And do you know anything about the Fair Play League? I know there were a couple of teams in contention for that.
Liverpool was in first last I checked. Wow, the Wikipedia article has already gone to next season as the current season. That's incredible. Anyway, okay. So Tottenham finishing 5th is qualification for Europa League group stage, and Liverpool is qualification to Europa League 3rd qualifying round, which might in essence mean they have to play like 2 more games if they have to play 2 legs.
Yeah, I mean the game is the number of the competition at that level. Liverpool had no problem with that. I mean, assuming that they play defense.
Well, yeah, assuming they remember how to play defense. Usually when they're beat, they still don't give up that many goals. That's embarrassing. 3rd qualifying round is right before the playoff round, which is right before the group stage. So I don't know if they'd actually have to play in the playoff round.
So, yeah, I don't know if I think it's right.
Yeah, they would. It said a total of 44 teams are expected to play in the playoff round. The 29 winners of the 3rd qualifying round and the 15 losers of the Champions League qualifying. So that'll, in essence, add 4 games to Liverpool's schedule by finishing 6th instead of 5th. The fair play, I was trying to figure that out. Last I checked, Liverpool was in the lead.
I thought there were teams that were in the relegation fight that were in the running for that. No.
There may have been. I'm about to pull up the table right now. No, Liverpool still. It looks like Liverpool won it by a point over West Ham. Actually, no. I don't know when this table gets updated. It was last updated the 5th of May, so
that's been a while.
I don't really. That was after 34 games played. Liverpool had the lead over West Ham. I don't really. Is it going to mean anything this year? It doesn't seem like it means anything.
Yeah, I don't know how that it. how that runs. So it says the top 3 associations, Netherlands, England, Republic of Ireland, gain an extra qualification berth into the 2015-16 Europa League first qualifying round. So one team from England is going to, so they get 8 people in the Europa League this year, basically.
Okay.
So from an extra Dutch team, an extra Irish team, and extra England. I don't know all the details of this, but it seems like that would be for countries where the officials are sort of loath to give out cards. I would think they would be. I mean, first of all, you could just, if the officiating. I mean, I get that this would be, bring officials into disrepute, and I don't mean to suggest that this is actually happening, but it seems like it would be pretty easy to say, let's just don't give yellow cards. We get an extra spot in the Europa League. Go us. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, because all the officials that officiate in the English Premier League, English and Wales, they all are English or Welsh, right? They're from the association.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess the other issue is like, if you don't call anything, then like your national team players are gonna start having like broken legs and stuff. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of another, I guess, sort of in that respect. But I mean, I think that the English game is a little more physical than some other leagues. I mean, you'll note that the Irish, also from the British Isles, and the Dutch, another Northern European league. I don't know how that all works, but the Finns, the Danes, the Germans, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Scotland, the top 10 are all Northern Europeans. And those leagues tend to be more physical and probably are not just not calling as much. And then Spain after that, then Austria, and then another one, Northern Ireland. So like all the British Isles are in the top 13. And I mean, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad way to do it. I mean, they go into the first qualification round of the Europa League. It's not a Champions League spot at first.
Yeah.
And you got to play a lot of extra games. So,
well, and I'm reading about it. It seems like it's a lot more than just cautions and dismissals. I mean, this paragraph, I'm trying, and I would love to be able to find the exact criteria or the exact formula they use, but it says the fair play assessments are made by the official UEFA delegates on criteria such as positive play, respect for the opposition, respect for the referee, behavior of the crowd and of the team officials, as well as cautions and dismissals.
Interesting.
And they all get like they get like a point. There's a point system, and the Netherlands ended up with 8.151 points. England was at 8.146 points. Ireland was at 8.144 points, and then Finland at 8.141. So, I don't know what all of that means.
Yeah, but if you look at the UEFA Fair Play winners down below on the Wikipedia tree, it's all Norway, Sweden, England, Netherlands, and Scotland, except there's one where Belarus comes in. So like Northern European, Belarus is still Northern European, but Eastern European. But even if you look at like, the other, like second and third place teams, it's still a lot of Northern European. It's a lot of England, Finland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden. I mean, there's a lot of that in there. I don't know. The Italian, known for like racially abusing people and things of that nature. So it's kind of, I mean, I can, like those stadiums in Italy are like empty all the time because they're like banned from having fans. So like, I don't see Italy on here. I get that, but France is not on here. Except I think in 2003 they were, but like in general, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of an interesting way to pick teams.
Yeah, and I stumbled upon a UEFA Fair Play Regulations edition for 2015-2016 season, and within that they have the way that they fair play assessment at UEFA competitions, and it goes into like when you get points deducted. So I mean, there would be a lot to kind of sit through that and parse through that to kind of see, okay, what's really going on here. But it does. I mean, it looks like there's about 11 articles on the section for the assessment, and one of the articles has to do with red and yellow cards.
Oh, you know what? I think so. The associations get picked by all those things that you're saying, but the way England does it, the way the Premier League picks their team, is based upon cards.
Okay. So I mean, it's all just it's.
And what I want to know is, like, what are they doing in Andorra? Because, like, you have like a nice stepwise. Everybody is like, lots of 7.7s, and they finally get to 7.6 and 7.5. Like it goes down in order. But Andorra is 6.9. There's a drop off from the next highest team is a 7.3. Like, are they just like always throwing things from the crowd? Do they like punch officials? Like, why is their score so bad?
Well, one of the things is behavior of spectators, and it says the following negative attitudes are taken into consideration: one or more spectators running onto the pitch, insulting chants, using or throwing pyrotechnics, using laser pointers, violence in the stands, racism, and discrimination.
I'm surprised that Scotland is so high. I have to admit.
What do they consider an insulting chant?
Well, that's true. That is true.
The Stoke fans, after it was like 3-0 or 4-0, were chanting to Brendan Rodgers, "sacked in the morning," which is hilarious in its own right. But is that insulting to say that, your manager, you're going to get sacked in the morning?
Yeah.
I don't know if I consider that
kind
insulting.
It's kind of a low. Well, it's certainly an insult, but like it's kind of a low bar. I wouldn't think. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Italy, who I mentioned before, who I was not surprised were in the top, they are 17th. So despite all of the perception and truth associated with Italian fans, and not just Italian fans, but just corruption and everything in Italy, in football specifically, maybe not in other places, although the mob is strongly associated with Italy. There are like a bunch of countries, worse than them. Mm-hmm. So there are 37 countries that are below Italy on this list. Actually, Wales is one of them. So, and that's so like there is a Welsh league, which I don't know if it's just like basically like after you get out of the English, fourth division. I don't know how that works, like how they register between the Welsh league and the English league. But the Welsh league actually has some spots as well in like the Europa League qualification stuff. So I've never looked into that because I don't care. But if anybody listening is actually interested in why the Welsh team qualify separately, how they qualify, I'm happy to look into that. I know that the Canadian teams qualify separately for CONCACAF Champions League, and they do that through the Canadian Championship. So it's not. So they have like a separate tournament, but that's not the way that it works in England. It is, Swansea and Cardiff, they play in the English FA Cup. So for purposes of UEFA, they are English, not Welsh. So just a little different. I don't know if that's the Canadian and U.S. federations that do that separately, or if that's a CONCACAF regulation that requires them to do that. I don't. That part I don't know. But anyway, we should probably wrap up unless you have anything to put on a footnote. And I should say that we do still have the FA Cup next week, and we have the Champions League final after that. We are not going to do an FA Cup preview unless something comes up and we need to change around something. But the next show will be the Champions League final preview, and that is the morning of the Champions League final at 10 a.m. June 6th, and then that game is that afternoon, I believe at 2:45 U.S.
Yeah,
Eastern
probably.
Time.
Yeah, probably around that time.
Anything else before we?
Well, we didn't run through the. We kind of talked about them a little bit, but the bottom three of the relegation teams.
Oh yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, we mentioned Aston Villa that finished 17th. I had them at 14th. You had them at 15th. I had a note somewhere in there that I thought if you're in 14th, the difference between 14th and 17th this year was 3 points. So picking the exact spots, especially after like 12, is it's going to be difficult because they're only separated by 50 points.
I think you can have a decent chance at figuring out who's going to get relegated, and we did do a decent job. And we got 2 out of 3 in the relegation.
Yeah,
so.
And the one that we missed was only because we thought Southampton was in such disarray that they were just going to not be able to compete at all. Because we had Burnley. I had them at 15th. You had them at 16th. I guess if we said that Southampton, well, here would have been my rationale. If Southampton, showed that they could turn it around, I wasn't going to relegate Sunderland because they were going to find a way out of it. Whoever I picked 16th, then, which I think I made a typo somewhere because I don't.
You must have, because you don't have me having a team having picked anybody for 17th.
Yeah. Well, I had.
And you have 2 of yours picked for 17th, so I must have picked one of them to be 17th. That's my guess.
I may have switched up the Swanseas. I may have picked Swansea 16th and you picked them 17th. I'd have to go back and look at that, but that's all water under the bridge right now. Point being was I would have probably have picked like Swansea or Sunderland to be that spot, but maybe Burnley. So I think it's easy to pick the teams that are going to be relegated. As far as above that, in any order from 11th to 17th, you might as well be picking names out of a hat.
And I mean, as we noted with Crystal Palace, you don't know what the teams are going to do, what sort of shakeups they're going to do this season, like who they're going to bring in the winter and stuff like that.
Right. It's not like some other sports where you can kind of get a sense of where they're going to be at because you've got the January transfer window, and you've got managers that can switch clubs frequently. So you really have no idea at the beginning of the season where based on what's going to happen mid-year.
Well, and also we did these predictions. I mean, I think we did pretty well actually, but we did it when the season started, and the transfer window doesn't end at the beginning of the season. So that's another. I don't think that really changed things up much at all. But the Alan Pardew. I mean, maybe they would have finished better than we thought anyway, but it seemed pretty drastic. The Newcastle going down and Crystal Palace going up once that happened.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what Newcastle does going forward. Whether or not Mike actually, because there are some people that Mike actually is just making sure it's a good base, that Newcastle doesn't get relegated again, and that's why he doesn't want to get a lot of wages that he can't afford right now, and so he's just sort of waiting until they have a good base, and then they'll challenge for the Champions League rather than. But I think you can really do that. You've got to make it like a stepwise process. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, unless you're just going to bring in entirely new players, which who knows if they're going to gel. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't seem like. I mean, some people have said that that's sort of the idea is that they don't want to just spend the money and then it could all go bad. We want to have a team that goes together, but I think money talks at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, if you got faith in your manager to gel the players together.
Yeah.
And some managers have that respect, and some clubs know that their managers can do that. Other smaller clubs, they don't either give their manager a chance to show that they can do that, or the managers just aren't very good at that because players don't fully respect or buy into systems from managers who aren't,
the big names. Of course, I mean, there's a little bit of hubris there because you are a player on a team that's fighting relegation. You know, like it's not like you're a world beater,
right?
yourself. So,
well, I mean, it's just it's something to say, and you are right on the quality of players, but like Mourinho, Wenger, Van Gaal, like those managers, you would think whoever they brought in, they would find a way to gel with the team.
yeah,
You would expect that from those managers, but even like I don't even know who's managing Tottenham anymore. You probably know the
well, it
name.
was the guy that was Southampton last year. It's not Koeman because he's the guy that's doing Southampton now. It's Pochettino.
Yeah,
I don't
I mean,
remember what his
I
name is,
couldn't
but
think of that, and I wouldn't have, but think that he could bring in anybody and make them gel like I would Mourinho. Like if Mourinho brings somebody in, I just expect that person to be able to gel with the team because Mourinho is going to make it happen.
right.
Or he's just not going to bring the player in. That's how Mourinho operates, and you've got the bottom teams where let's look at like a Leicester. Even if they could bring in a top player, you don't know if your manager can make them gel with the rest of the team. So I think that's where I liked Leicester more this year was that it seemed like they had a team togetherness, even though they had a lack of talent compared to the other clubs. And I think that shows. If you've got a team that's together the whole season, you're probably not going to get relegated.
Yeah. So, yeah, Pochettino has never. I mean, he won. Well, that was as a player. The only thing that he's won as a manager is Premier League Manager of the Month in October 2013. So he's never won a league or a cup. Um, so, I mean, I think you're right not to place tons of. I mean, the thing about all the managers that you mentioned there were they all won things. I mean,
True.
so
I mean, it's you win something and players will buy into that, or
right.
clubs will buy into that.
I mean, even if you're lucky, if you win, people that buys you so much.
It will. It will.
All right. Well, I'm going to give this last call one more time. Anything else?
That's all.
All right. So we will be back again unless something happens, which has been happening a lot lately. But unless something happens, June 6th, 10 a.m., 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And for now, we're signing off on the Free Culture Sports Show. I'll have to cut off this end too because I can't find the stop broadcast button. Now, where's my mouse? All right.